So the next step is we want to track this face. So we have these geometries. Um, at the very bottom here, you'll see there's an export tab. There's a couple different things you can do. Export the geometry that you have already, get cameras exported, anything you want. But what we're looking for is the face tracker. I'm going to select face tracker. By default, it's linked to the face builder, and I'm going to press export. It'll automatically connect it up to the camera, the face builder, and then we want to go back to the keyframe that we're using first, and let's look through that. So you'll notice as soon as I click off, the face is in the right place, but there's always a few things that are off, especially the mouth. For some reason, the neutral mouth position should definitely adjusts. Now, if I click anywhere on here, you'll notice there's no control points. If I click on here, the entire face will move. So I want to reset these control points the best I can now with as little movement to this geometry. So I usually just lay down a couple, see, rotated the face there. And then I'm just going to set these. And the more I set, the less it's going to be modified afterwards. I really wish it would. Maybe it does transfer over control points, but I have not found that option yet. So if you do find it, let me know, because I hate doing this again since I already had my control points. So I keep with kind of what they had before. Ones I'm going to add that were not there before. I did the 4 around the mouth. But especially if you have any lip movements or talking, you're going to want a control point right at this edge of the mouth to make sure you can control the upper and lower part of the lips. Again, all the blue areas we can animate. It'll animate blinking. It'll animate all that stuff. And obviously, if there's eyebrow raises and something that's different. So I do like to give control points back to all of the animation areas. But as we see, the lip has not been aligned, so I'm just going to pull that lip up till the mouth is closed and make sure this is all in sync. Okay, so we've reset that. That's part 1. Part 2, you'll notice up here in the FaceTracker file, it says Analyze File. What this is basically it's going to read all the footage and basically create a vector map of sorts. I don't really know what the technology is in there, but think of it like smart vectors. It's processing the entire image so that it has all the smart vector information. So we need to create a folder for this analyze file to go to. I have kind of determined, and I'm planning on building this into the pipeline. Excuse me while I go to my correct shot 20. I'm going to work out of the comp work folder, and then instead of nuke, where it has scripts, I'm just going to create a folder here that says Keen Tools. And within here, I like to create another folder that says Pre-Calc. I call it Pre-Calc, if I can spell it, Pre-Calc, because the file type that we need to create is a Pre-Calc file. And it is important to really kind of label these as well. So I'm going to say test 020 clean for clean face, because we have a tattoo face. And then definitely give it a version number, because sometimes you do want to resolve this later on. And you don't have to put anything after that, because it will autofill the .precalc for you, as you can see up here. So that's the pre-calc file. All you want to do now is click Analyze, and it is going to process the entire footage. And I'll jump back in 5 minutes and show you the result. All right, welcome back. Okay, we have processed the face tracking footage. One thing I forgot specifically for this shot, it isn't relevant to everyone's shot, but something that does happen throughout the shot is obviously her hand is going up and wiping her face. So the one thing you can do to obviously help from preventing that information from being translated into the solve is we can create a holdout. There is a mask channel to the face tracker, and I have just done a quick roto of the hand to kind of give us that holdout. So I went ahead and did this offline and just created a version 2 of the face tracking pre-calc and included that information so that it is not registering with that. So from here, the next step we want to go over is the actual tracking phase. So we have two keyframes that are already in here, the one that we set up and the one at the end. We're going to go back up to the viewer settings. So all these tools, like I said, there's a lot up here that I'm not going to go through, but there's a lot of great things you can do to help refine this. But as standard tracking goes, we have our step forward or track forward, or step forward back and track back. I'm just going to start from the keyframe that we began with, and I'm going to track backwards. Okay. And then I'm going to jump back to that keyframe, and I'm going to track forwards. And I expect there might be a little distortion from that hand, but let's see. It's holding pretty well. Okay. We'll check back. I'm just going to let this play out, and I will catch up with you in a second. Okay, tracking has completed. As you scrub through here, you'll see that overall the movement is pretty good. There's definitely a few areas. So we had a keyframe here at the end, which is right here. That one is pretty clean and kind of what it was aligning to. But I do see that there are a few misalignments within here, primarily the edge of the face here and the chin line. So I'm just going to go ahead and modify that keyframe again and kind of just get everything realigned the way I want it. Jawline looks good. Let's just tighten up that ear. Okay, so that one's feeling a little better. At this point, we can kind of go through the spot and where the keyframes are most off, or the geometry is most off. We can certainly make some adjustments. So you see that there is a bit of a discrepancy here, and I'm guessing that has to do with my roto probably not being so tight on those frames, which probably brought in that movement information. So let's see if we can counter animate this a little bit on our end. I'm just going to go in and throw in another keyframe here. And by the keyframe, I mean, as soon as you start moving anything, it automatically creates a keyframe. So nothing you have to do. I'm just going to get this face kind of aligned, the cheek kind of aligned. So you do see that the geometry is getting a little distorted on that side. To be fair, I'm not as concerned about that side because my main work on this shot is going to be this side. So it really depends on what areas you're focusing on, and making sure you get those areas the best they can, and be willing to let yourself sacrifice some of the other areas. If they become problematic, you can always come back and readjust things later. But focus on the big picture items first. So again, I see a little distortion and stuff happening here. And as I move this in, and this is kind of what I was talking about before, is I can move this area in, but it is a locked geo for everything that's gray here. So if I move this in, I'm affecting the mouth area a lot more. And you'll notice, like, sometimes if you start adjusting the jaw over here, it starts pulling the mouth. That's because the geo is locked, and we're just trying to maneuver it the best we can in those areas. So let's say that one's good. Okay, so we've set 3 keyframes. One at the beginning, one in the middle, one back at the end. You'll notice if I move forward 1 frame, it's going to jump back. So it's only setting that geometry for 1 frame right there. The way we solve this is there's 2 buttons up here, Refine and Refine All. The Refine button will refine from this keyframe to and from the next keyframe. So if there was, say, 20 keyframes in here for some reason, which I recommend not having 20 keyframes if you can avoid it. If you do have 20 keyframes, you might need to redo the geo or the solve. But if we have multiple keyframes, it would just solve in between the 2 closest keyframes and create a smooth transition. Since there's only 3 keyframes and we have adjusted 2 of them, I'm just going to refine all, which will go back and forth between all. So I could do 5 more versions of adjusting for this, but I would like the computer to interpolate these 3 first, so I get a better smooth solve overall, and then see what I need to adjust from there. So I'm going to refine all, and I'll be back in a minute. So now we have refined between those 2 areas, and look at that. We've got a pretty good stuff. It's not as dramatic through the middle here. Everything seems to be holding okay. And there's a little slippage at the end because we didn't put a keyframe at the end. So I'm going to go refine that keyframe here one more time. Definitely better. Now, if I was doing this for real, I would definitely refine a few more things and maybe take just a little more time in what I'm doing here. But for the purposes of this, I think this is a pretty successful result of the face tracking. So the next step is, what are you going to do with this? And I'm going to show that in the next tutorial.